ExamPrep.School. Wisconsin Title Insurance Exam, Exam Code 22-11. There are 6 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Insurance regulation, real property, title exceptions and procedures for clearing title. And I place title insurance. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Under Wisconsin law, what is the primary objective of instituting a title insurance producer licensing requirement? A. Ensure that title insurance claims are paid regardless of producer negligence. B. Generate revenue for the Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of Insurance. C. Protect the public by verifying that title insurance producers possess requisite qualifications and adhere to ethical standards. D. Standardize premium rates across all title insurers operating in Wisconsin. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is C. Licensing requirements protect consumers by ensuring that title insurance producers meet qualification criteria, demonstrate competence, and comply with ethical regulations enforced by the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance. Reason A is not correct. Claims payment obligations are governed by policy provisions, not producer licensing. Reason B is not correct. Licensing fees are not primarily intended as a revenue source for the OCI. Reason D is not correct. Premium rate schedules are set by insurers and regulated separately from licensing. Question 2. Which individual is required to obtain a title insurance producer license under Wisconsin statutes? A. A paralegal who conducts title searches but does not sell title insurance products. B. A real estate agent who occasionally refers clients to title insurers without negotiating terms. C. An employee who negotiates title insurance policy terms for compensation. D. A claims adjuster for a title insurance company who evaluates coverage disputes. The correct answer is C. Wisconsin law mandates licensing for anyone who sells, solicits, or negotiates title insurance policies for compensation. Negotiating policy terms constitutes title insurance producer activities. Reason A is not correct. Conducting title searches without selling or negotiating insurance does not require a license. Reason B is not correct. Referral activities without negotiation or sale fall outside the licensing mandate. Reason D is not correct. Claims adjustment is a distinct function, not covered by the title producer license requirement. Question 3. According to Wisconsin requirements, which of the following must be satisfied before applying for an initial title insurance producer license? A. Submission of proof of financial responsibility through a minimum net worth requirement. B. Provision of a fidelity bond valued at no less than $10,000. C. Successful completion of a Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of Insurance approved title insurance examination. D. Enrollment in a federal title insurance regulatory council certification program. The correct answer is C. Wisconsin mandates that applicants pass an OCI-approved title insurance examination as a prerequisite for initial licensing. Financial responsibility and bonding requirements apply post-licensure or under separate statutes, and no federal certification is required. Reason A is not correct. Net worth requirements apply to insurers or other license types, not to individual producers. Pre-licensure. Reason B is not correct. Fidelity bonds are not a prerequisite for initial title producer licensing. Reason D is not correct. No federal certification program is mandated for Wisconsin title producer applicants. Question 4. Under Wisconsin regulations, when is the applicant permitted to begin acting as a title insurance producer? A. Immediately after filing the application while the background check is pending. B. only after the fingerprint-based background check is completed and the license is issued. C. After 60 days have passed from the date of fingerprint submission, if no disqualifying information is received. D. Upon receipt of a provisional license valid until final background check results are returned. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is that the applicant may not perform any producer activities until the fingerprint-based background check has been completed and the official license has been issued, as required by Wisconsin Insurance Code. Reason A is not correct. Incorrect because submitting an application alone does not permit producer activities. The fingerprint-based background check must be completed first. Reason C is not correct. Incorrect because Wisconsin law does not allow automatic authorization after an arbitrary waiting period without regulatory approval. Reason D is not correct. Incorrect because Wisconsin does not provide provisional producer licenses pending background check results. Full licensure is required before beginning activities. Question 5. Under Wisconsin insurance enforcement statutes, what is the maximum civil penalty per violation that the Commissioner of Insurance may assess against an insurer or producer? A. $500 per violation. B. $1,000 per violation. C. $2,500 per violation. D. $5,000 per violation. The correct answer is B. The Commissioner's authority to impose civil penalties is capped at $1,000 per violation under Wistiness Statius Section 601.652. Reason A is not correct. This amount understates the statutory maximum. The Commissioner is permitted to assess a higher penalty. Reason C is not correct. This figure exceeds the authorized limit but is not the maximum set by statute. Reason D is not correct. This amount is above the statutory cap provided for civil penalties per violation. Question 6. A licensed title producer receives a notice from the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance OCI stating that his license renewal has been denied and that he may request an administrative hearing. Under Wisconsin administrative hearing procedures and due process requirements, within how many days after service of the notice must the producer file a written request for hearing to preserve his right to contest the denial? A. 10 days. B. 20 days. C. 60 days. D. 30 days. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is 30 days because Wisconsin's administrative procedure requires a licensee to file a hearing request within 30 days of service of the denial notice to secure due process rights. Reason A is not correct. This interval is too brief. The statutes provide a longer period for hearing requests. Reason B is not correct. There is no 20-day window in the statute for requesting a hearing on license denial. Reason C is not correct. A 60-day period exceeds the statutory deadline, risking forfeiture of hearing rights. Question 7. During an investigation, OCI discovers that a title producer has been diverting escrow funds and misappropriating client payments. Which of the following administrative penalties is OCI expressly authorized to impose against the licensee for this violation? A. Impose a civil forfeiture up to $25,000 per violation. B. Require completion of additional continuing education at the licensee's expense. C. Suspend the license for 2 years without offering a hearing. D. Refer the matter directly for criminal prosecution. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is the civil forfeiture because Wisconsin law authorizes OCI to assess forfeitures up to specified limits per violation as an administrative penalty. Reason B is not correct. Requiring extra education may be part of corrective orders but is not an express statutory forfeiture penalty. Reason C is not correct. License suspension requires notice and hearing. There is no authority to suspend without due process. Reason D is not correct. OCI can refer to prosecutors, but criminal referral is not an administrative penalty it imposes directly. Question 8. Under the Wisconsin Administrative Code provisions addressing misrepresentation in insurance marketing communications, which of the following examples would be considered a misrepresentation? A. Asserting that this insurer's financial strength rating is A++ as provided by AM Best. B. Advertising that policyholders may select either monthly or annual premium payment schedules. C. Claiming that your homeowner's insurance premium will never increase in future renewals. D. Stating that this policy's dwelling coverage limit is $200,000. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is a misrepresentation because guaranteeing that premiums will never increase contradicts the policy's terms allowing rate adjustments and therefore provides materially inaccurate information. Reason A is not correct. This statement accurately reflects the insurer's published AM Best rating and does not misrepresent policy terms. Reason B is not correct. This accurately describes available payment options and does not provide false or misleading information. Reason D is not correct. This correctly states the dwelling coverage limit set forth in the policy and is not misleading. Question 9. Midwest Title Insurance published an email campaign stating, "Buy our policy and sleep easy. Our coverage protects against any title defect, no exceptions." And also a flyer offering save 15% with code SPRING15. And a billboard featuring only its trade name without insure details. Under Wisconsin's false advertising standards for insurance products, which promotional practice is most likely a violation? A. Guaranteeing coverage for any title defect without disclosing standard policy exceptions. B. Offering a 15% discount using a promotional code in marketing materials. C. Displaying a billboard with only the agency's trade name and no insurer information. D. Using a sleep easy tagline to promote consumer peace of mind. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is guaranteeing coverage for any title defect without disclosing standard policy exceptions, because it misrepresents the extent of coverage, violating Wisconsin's false advertising prohibition on deceptive statements about policy benefits. Reason B is not correct. Promotional discounts are governed by rebate regulations rather than false advertising standards, and a 15% discount may be permissible if properly authorized. Reason C is not correct. Failing to include insurer information violates marketing identification rules, but is not a false advertising issue. Reason D is not correct. A sleep easy tagline is considered sales puffery and does not convey a specific coverage promise, so it doesn't breach false advertising standards. Question 10. Which of the following items is classified as real property rather than personal property? A. Implements such as annual wheat crops. B. Minerals in situ beneath the surface. C. Trade fixtures installed by a retail tenant. D. Household furniture in a detached garage. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is minerals in situ because this represents an interest in the land itself and is therefore real property, whereas implements, trade fixtures, and household furniture are removable and classified as personal property. Reason A is not correct. Implements are annual crops grown by a tenant and are considered personal property once harvested. Reason C is not correct. Trade fixtures are installed by a tenant for business use and remain personal property removable at lease end. Reason D is not correct. Household furniture is movable by nature and is classified as personal property, not part of the real estate. Question 11. A homeowner sells a property that includes a custom oak bookshelf, secured to wall studs and painted to match the walls, and an antique grandfather clock that stands free on the hardwood floor. Under the test for fixture classification, which item would be considered a fixture that conveys with the property? A. The custom oak bookshelf secured to the wall studs and painted to match the walls. B. The antique grandfather clock standing free on the hardwood floor. C. A modular stainless steel kitchen island that can be unplugged and moved. D. A removable area rug laid over the hardwood flooring. The correct answer is A. The bookshelf is physically annexed to the structure and adapted to its surroundings, demonstrating both annexation and adaptation tests, so it qualifies as a fixture that passes with the sale. Reason B is not correct. The clock is not annexed to the building and remains personal property as it stands free without structural integration. Reason C is not correct. The island is designed to be movable and not integrated into the structure, so it remains personal property. Reason D is not correct. The rug is intended to be portable and simply rests on the floor surface, so it does not meet fixture tests. Question 12. Which clause is not an essential element for a deed to validly convey property under Wisconsin law? A. Granting clause conveying title. B. Signature of the grantor. C. Description of the land. D. Habenom clause defining the estate. The correct answer is D. The habendum clause is not required for a deed to be valid. The granting clause, property description, and grantor's signature are essential. Reason A is not correct. A granting clause is essential because it expresses the grantor's intent to convey title. Reason B is not correct. A grantor's signature is mandatory to authenticate the deed. Reason C is not correct. A legal description is required to identify the property being conveyed. Question 13. Which covenant is found in a general warranty deed but is absent from a quitclaim deed? A. Grantor's release clause. B. Covenant of seisin. C. Words of conveyance clause. D. Habenom clause defining estate. The correct answer is B. A general warranty deed includes the covenant of seisin, which assures the grantor owns the estate. A quitclaim deed contains no covenants. Reason A is not correct. A release clause is not a recognized covenant in either deed type. Reason C is not correct. Words of conveyance are part of the deed's operative language, not a covenant. Reason D is not correct. A habendum clause defines the extent of the estate but is not a covenant. Question 14. A seller and adjacent landowner entered into a restrictive covenant limiting livestock on the property, but the covenant was never recorded. A subsequent purchaser buys the land without any actual or inquiry notice of this covenant. Which best describes how this covenant affects the purchaser's title? A. The covenant remains binding on the purchaser because covenants run with the land automatically at law. B. The covenant is unenforceable against the purchaser due to lack of notice. C. The covenant operates as a mechanic's line encumbrance until it is properly recorded. D. The covenant survives only if registered in a separate restrictive covenant registry. The correct answer is B. The covenant was never recorded and the purchaser had no actual or inquiry notice, so it cannot bind that purchaser. Reason A is not correct. Enforceability requires recordation or notice. Without notice, a covenant does not bind a subsequent purchaser. Reason C is not correct. A covenant is not a mechanic's lien and does not require lien formalities to bind successors. Reason D is not correct. Restrictions do not depend on a separate registry. Enforceability depends on notice and recordation. Question 15. A utility company holds a recorded easement for overhead power lines across Blackacre. Subsequently, the owner takes out a mortgage on Blackacre and later defaults. The lender forecloses the mortgage and sells the property to a third party. Which statement correctly describes the status of the utility's easement after foreclosure? A. The foreclosure sale extinguishes the easement along with all interests burdening the property. B. The easement survives foreclosure and continues to burden the property after the sale. C. The mortgage line merges into the easement Creating a fee simple interest in favor of the lender. D. The lender, as purchaser at foreclosure, acquires the right to use the easement for its own purposes. The correct answer is B. An easement is a non-possessory property interest that runs with the land and is not extinguished by a mortgage foreclosure sale. Reason A is not correct. Foreclosure typically cuts off junior liens but does not eliminate valid easements. Reason C is not correct. Liens and easements are distinct interests. A lien does not convert into an easement. Reason D is not correct. Foreclosure gives the lender possession interest but does not grant use rights under an easement. Question 16. Which term describes the amount by which a meets and bounds survey fails to close back to its point of beginning due to measurement rounding and angular discrepancies? A. Angular misclosure error. B. Linear misclosure error. C. Coordinate closure error. D. Error of closure. The correct answer is D. The error of closure is the vector difference between the survey's terminating point and its point of beginning, representing the cumulative measurement error. Reason A is not correct. This term refers only to angular measurement errors rather than the combined distance and angular deviation of the entire traverse. Reason B is not correct. This term denotes discrepancies in length measurements only and does not account for directional errors in the traverse. Reason C is not correct. This is not a standard surveying term for describing a traverse's misclosure in meets and bounds descriptions. Question 17. Recording a conveyance instrument in the county land records primarily serves which of the following purposes? A. To provide constructive notice of a grantee's interest to subsequent purchasers. B. To verify the grantor's identity and the document's authenticity. C. To establish a conclusive chain of title without need for title insurance. D. To satisfy the statute of frauds requirement for enforceability of real estate contracts. The correct answer is A. The primary function of recording is to give constructive notice of recorded interest to subsequent purchasers, establishing priority among competing claims. Reason B is not correct. Recording does not authenticate documents or verify identities. Notarization and acknowledgement serve that role. Reason C is not correct. Recording does not guarantee a conclusive chain of title nor eliminate the need for title insurance. Reason D is not correct. Statute of frauds requirements are met by the written and signed instrument, not by its recording. Question 18. A title examiner is conducting a search in Adams County for a deed conveying a parcel described only by a meets and bounds description. The examiner knows that Sarah Thompson conveyed the property to Michael Lee but has no other identifying details. Which index should the examiner consult to locate this deed? A. Grantor Index. B. Grantee Index. C. Tract Index. D. Document Number Index. The correct answer is A. The grantor index lists recorded instruments under the name of the grantor, so using Sarah Thompson's name and the grantor index will directly locate her deed conveying the property. Reason B is not correct. Searching the grantee index by buyer name would locate documents filed under Michael Lee, not the deed executed by Sarah Thompson. Reason C is not correct. The tract index organizes records by land description, but without subdivision or lot identifiers, it would be inefficient compared to a name index. Reason D is not correct. The document number index requires a specific recording reference number, which is not available when only the parties' names are known. Question 19. Which statement best describes a fundamental distinction between the purpose of title insurance and casualty insurance? A. Title insurance reimburses an owner for stolen personal property. Casualty insurance reimburses a mortgagee for unpaid balances upon default. B. Title insurance covers damage to a structure's physical assets. Casualty insurance covers legal liability for injuries sustained on that property. C. Title insurance indemnifies for financial losses from pre-existing title defects. Casualty insurance indemnifies for losses from future occurrences covered under the policy. D. Title insurance provides indemnity for surplus investment gains upon sale. Casualty insurance limits coverage to liability exposures only. The correct answer is C. The correct answer explains that title insurance protects against losses from defects in ownership arising before policy issuance, whereas casualty insurance covers losses from events occurring after policy inception. Reason A is not correct. Personal property theft and mortgagee reimbursement are not the core distinctions between title and casualty insurance purposes. Reason B is not correct. This describes liability versus property damage coverages, but not the timing distinction in indemnification between the two lines of insurance. Reason D is not correct. Surplus gains and liability limits do not address the fundamental difference in coverage timing between title versus casualty insurance. Question 20. Which risk arising from an error in the public record is covered by a standard title insurance policy without endorsement? A. Unrecorded easement created by prescription between adjoining owners. B. Improper indexing of a deed by the county recorder's office. C. Boundary encroachment, identified by a new land survey. D. Violation of municipal zoning ordinances recorded in the county code. The correct answer is B. The correct answer identifies a public record indexing error as a covered risk under a standard title policy. While unrecorded easements, survey defects, and zoning issues are excluded unless specially endorsed. Reason A is not correct. A prescriptive easement is not recorded in the public register, and thus is excluded without endorsement. Reason C is not correct. Survey-based boundary encroachments arise from physical measurements, which standard policies exclude without a survey endorsement. Reason D is not correct. Zoning ordinance violations are matters of public law, not defects in the public record, and are excluded. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.